What's up, metalheads? I'm Jamie. This is the Blades and EDC channel, and welcome to episode 6 of Versus, where we are going to put the Tuya Big Belly up against the TRM Shadow. I think this is going to make a pretty good Versus video. Two fantastic knives. Really like both of these knives. They both have the best crossbar lock action that I have felt between any bug out, any Hogue, any Gonzo. There's been a few others I've felt along the way, but they don't come to mind at the moment. But these two here definitely are at the top of the game when it comes to axis lock action. No doubt about it. They are both fantastic. This one is, the Shadow is a G10 scales with liners, and I'm not sure if those liners are titanium or steel. They are steel liners in the Shadow. And the Big Belly has no liners. The Big Belly is actually an integral, carbon fiber integral. So yeah, now these are kind of like your liners here, which holds everything together on the outside, these inlays, which are steel. Lay these out and let you see, compare the size. The Big Belly is definitely blade heavy because it's all carbon fiber in the back, so definitely more weight in the back with the Big Belly. The Shadow is just a hair longer, but not by much. I mean, we're talking 1/8 of an inch. And let's go ahead and do a couple size comparisons real quick and get that out of the way, just so you get an idea of the size of these guys. There is, let me move that up a little bit, get you better in frame here. All right, there's the Penguin. Here is Spyderco Pair 3. And I'll hold the Big Belly down. Big Belly needs a little help laying flat. So yeah, they're both a little bit longer than the Pair 3 and the Penguin. We'll go ahead and throw out a couple more for you. The AD 20.5. Definitely got a little length on the AD 20.5. And let's go ahead and do the Benchmade bug out, since we are looking at axis locks here. Benchmade bug out's almost identical in length to the Big Belly, but I think it's a little bit shorter than the Shadow. Yeah, it is a hair shorter than the Shadow. So the Shadow is a little bit longer than the Big Belly. Here, let's get that out of the way here. Yeah, I'd say the Shadow's got 1/4 of an inch maybe on the Big Belly in length. We're going to check the weight on both of these. If I remember correctly, the weight on this one's 3.6 ounces. But we're going to verify that real quick. I think the Big Belly may weigh more because I think it has a bigger blade stock, or thicker blade stock. Oh no, Big Belly's probably going to be less. 3.3 ounces. Between 3.3 and 3.4. We'll call it 3.4. And the Shadow, 3.7. 3.7. So yeah, Shadow weighs just a hair more. Not really enough to where you're going to notice it. Now, the action on these two. Both these knives have the best axis lock action or crossbar lock action I've felt on any knives. But they're very different action. And that difference comes because of the weight of this blade. All the weight of this knife is in the blade. Nothing's back here. Like, you know, it doesn't even want to lay flat because all the weight's up here. So with this Big Belly, when you deploy that blade and just get it going, the weight of that blade, the momentum just brings it home. Same on the close. It just drops. And it won't bounce unless you just completely hold it. But if you drop it and let go, There's no bounce. It just finds its way home. It won't stop in the middle, really. Well, I guess you can stop in the middle. But action's fantastic on this knife. Reverse flick is a little tricky because, as you can see there, the thumb studs are pretty much even with the scale, so it can be a little tricky to get your middle finger in there and reverse flick it. But once you find the spot, find the sweet spot, you can get it. It's more you gotta push up with the side of your finger here to get it to flick out. The thumb flick though, thumb flick's fantastic. Great sound on it too. Just a thwack when it opens up. The shadow definitely has much better access to your thumb studs. Very interesting thumb studs here, the way they're done also. See that? Now on the titanium version, they're done differently, I think. Never mind, no they're not. They're the same on the titanium version. But you get much better access to the thumb studs on the shadow over the Big Belly. The blade is also not nearly as heavy. So it doesn't have that momentum to carry it open or close, but it's so smooth, you don't really need much. I mean, if you just flick, it's going. You don't have to flick hard, just a light flick. Same on the reverse. The reverse is much better on the shadow for sure. Actually, both are better on the shadow, the thumb flick and the reverse flick. And I think a lot of that has to do with the positioning of the studs, thumb studs, because with this one, they're pretty tight to the scales. Although with the thumb, you can just flick straight up. And the thumb flick action is really good on a Big Belly, but on the reverse flick, it's a little tricky. And that blade is where all the weight of this knife is at. I would say 3 ounces of the weight is the blade, and the other 0.3 ounces is the carbon fiber handle and the pocket clip. Do you have a titanium pocket clip? I do not know if this is a titanium clip or not. Yes. So this is titanium also on the shadow. These knives are priced about the same price, somewhere in that $280 range, if you can find either one of them. You can actually find the Big Belly right now, and this is the premium version. There are G10 versions available for like $160, lots of them, different colors, lots of different options to choose from, but the shadow is a different story. It's hard to find the shadow. And there are only 2 variations of the shadow. There's this version, G10, and there's a full titanium version, which is even harder to find. Ergonomics. Big Belly's good. It is good. The way the blade is shaped, you got a perfect place for your thumb to land right here. Swedge across the top. Nice flat grind. This is a thicker blade stock for sure. Ergonomics on the shadow, they are better. They're better. Especially with that forward finger choil. It just feels so much better in hand. And it feels even. The Big Belly feels blade heavy. Feels like the weight is all in the front. It is all in the front, and you can feel it in hand, especially when you're back here, the normal grip. If I grip up here, I don't notice it as much, but when I'm back here, I can feel the weight of that blade. To where with the shadow, it's balanced. It feels like it's perfectly balanced. We're on the pivot right there. Maybe a little bit extra weight on the butt of the shadow, but not much. It's pretty close to balance. The reason for that, this does have the liners in it, but the blade stock's so thin on this. Let's see here. Blade stock on the Big Belly. It's gonna be hard to even, so the thickest spot's gonna be right there at the flat. 145 thousandths thick. And the shadow, 91 thousandths thick. So quite a big difference there. Now, as far as cutting performance goes, I don't own either of these knives. This knife was sent in by Q-Ball. This knife was sent in by Saigon Kick 2018, or Craig, or Chris, or Q-Ball. Everybody knows him as Q-Ball, so I say Q-Ball. So I haven't cut with either of these knives. I'm sure both will cut very well, but the shadow is going to be much slicier just because of how much thinner that blade stock is. It's going to be much more slicey. No doubt about that. This one is 20 CV blade still, and this one is M390. This is the premium version. I'm not sure what those, I can't remember off the top of my head what those budget versions that are like 160 are, but they hide the blade steel marking down here, which is pretty cool that they do that. It says M390 in there, then it has your serial number. This is 90, I think it's 87 of 220, and M390 blade steel. This one is 20 CV, so competitive blade steels. Some people like M390 better, some people like 20 CV better. I think I prefer 20 CV. I know what I do prefer is a thinner blade stock though, and you definitely got that with this. Now, when you're gripped up right here on this shadow, this is just perfect. It feels so good. And if you need to do any utility cuts with the way they clip the blade here, you can rest your index finger right there and get right into any utility cuts. It's going to be super slicey for push cuts, especially gripped up like this. It's going to make the push cuts so good, so much more controllable. With this one, you know, you're going to be able to do some push cuts right there with your thumb there. You can kind of choke up a little bit right here, but you're getting up on that edge. You would not want to be doing any push cutting or puncturing with that, because there's really nothing to stop your finger from going forward. You can get your finger out to about right here, so you got a little more belly on this blade, so you're gonna have to lift it up higher to get to the tip than you will in the shadow. Aesthetically, it's an easy win for me. Aesthetically, the shadow wins for sure. The blade shape alone, it just looks so good, so sleek. Just a sexy knife, man. Sexy knife. The Big Belly looks really good too. I'm not the biggest fan of this weave carbon fiber. I'd love to see them do this and some other, like a marbled carbon fiber, or raindrop carbon fiber, or even fat carbon. Same with this. I'd love to see the shadow done with some type of fat carbon on the scales. Would be so sick. They would sell more than they can make. They'd sell them faster than they can make them. They're already selling them faster than they can make what they're making now. But if they were to do these in some fat carbon, my goodness, man. Yeah, I hope they get to where they can make more of these quicker, so more people get the opportunity to own one. The finish on the blade on this one's just a satin finish. That's a belt satin, I would guess. It does not look like a hand satin. And you got vertical satin grind marks here, horizontal on the flats, and then vertical again on the swedge up there. The shadow is just stonewash finish, going to not be nearly as much of a fingerprint magnet. Although you can see fingerprints, they just don't stand out like they do on a satin blade, you know. I touch this blade and fingerprints everywhere instantly. Where with this one, you can barely even tell I've touched it. The edge on this shadow is crazy sharp. And I don't know if Q-Ball has sharpened this knife or not, but man, it's sharp. Although I do feel a little spot here. It's more of a toothy sharp, like it's trying to grab my fingernail. This edge is more like a polished edge. So, and it's a finer edge too. You can see the angle focus. The angle's pretty thin there. There's not a whole lot of edge that has been sharpened. It's very, very thin there. With this, you get slightly more, it's laid back more. And with this blade stock being so thin and laying that angle back further, it's just going to make this thing a slicing beast. Or chopping. This blade shape's great for chopping. Yeah. I think it's pretty obvious who my winner is. Although, I got to say, I really like the Big Belly. I really do like this knife a whole lot. I think it's really cool, especially being a carbon fiber integral knife. I think it's super cool. I like the blade shape. I think it's a good looking knife. But this is on another level for me. This is just absolutely fantastic. The ergonomics, the geometry, the blade shape. It just, this is the perfect blade knife shape for me, for my hand size. This just feels so good in my hand. I feel like I have complete control of this knife, especially with that forward finger choil. One thing about this one to point out is they don't give you a sharpening choil. And the plunge, although you can see the highest point right there, it's actually coming down a little bit, so it flattens out right about where the edge ends there. So you're going to get a smile on this one pretty quickly. No sharpening choil at all in this knife, which yeah, I wish they would put one in there. When you look at the way this is done, I don't see why they couldn't put one in there. Seems like they could. The axis lock catches right in that groove where they notched that out. They could have, yeah, I think they could have put a choil in there if they wanted to. Oh, you can see the blade still from here too. The markings in there. There you go. So yeah, pretty easy winner for me. This one's not a hard choice. The TRM Shadow is definitely going to be the winner for me between these two knives. Although both of them are fantastic knives. I would be happy to own either one of these knives. Honored to own either of these knives. Especially that Shadow, man. Yeah, really want to get those in one of these in the near future. And I wouldn't mind owning a Big Belly also. I think they're both great knives. Done very differently. Yeah, two fantastic knives, EDC knives. You couldn't go wrong with either one. But in my opinion, as far as an EDC, everyday carry, everyday use knife, this is perfection. It really is. They've thought about it all. They designed this knife to perfection, in my opinion. So winner for me is the Shadow. Let me know what you guys think. Do you own either of these knives? What do you think about them? And if they were both available today, you could buy either one. Which one would you buy right now? If they were both available and you could pick it up and have it at your house tomorrow, which one would you buy? I would definitely buy the Shadow, so no doubt about it. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button for me. Subscribe if you are new. And I will see you guys on the next one.